Hi, everybody. So I'm here. I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy you're here, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. I'm glad I'm here to be able to talk to you because learning to embrace failure, that's everything because it happens, right? No matter how hard you try. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, embracing failure as a part of success. We're going to have a real conversation about this because I know everybody has their moments and we all think about failure a little differently depending on, how we were raised and how we look at things. So for some of us, the idea of making mistakes, doing something wrong, falling on our face, looking foolish in front of others is really, really hard and really scary. And we don't get started because we don't want to fail. That word failure is cringy, right? People cringe when they hear that word because they see it as something negative. You don't want to be a failure. Don't be making mistakes. It's how we learn, right? Failure, that's the thing. We try to avoid failure at all costs, and yet failure is not the end of the road. It's really part of the journey, right? It's a stepping stone to success. So I want to let's just get into it and talk about why failure and being able to embrace that failure is happening and turn it into a stepping stone rather than a roadblock is really, really essential. Okay. So first and foremost, it's all about growth. When we embrace failure, we open ourselves up to a world of learning opportunities, to discovery, and seeing things in a different way. Like when you look at Edison, he tried thousands of times to make a light bulb and he failed at them. He didn't make a light bulb, they didn't work. And yet, when asked about it, he's like, I didn't fail. I never had a failure. I had a whole bunch of feedback about how not to make a light bulb. Right? That's a great way to look at it because every time he tried, he knew what wouldn't work because he was able to see each setback and every mistake as a chance to gather insights. He was able to see it as feedback and adjust his approach. And that's how we need to look at it so that we grow as individuals. So that's a tip I want to leave you with today, to see failure as feedback, as your teacher and not your tormentor. The next tip I want to give you is to refine your relationship with failure. Instead of seeing it as a personal reflection of your abilities, see it as a natural part of the process. Failure isn't a judgment of who you are, it's just a moment in time. Tip number two, separate your self worth and your sense of self worth from your failures. They're not one and the same. So let that idea go. Let's talk about resilience, right? Embracing failure and bouncing back is a superpower. It's what sets successful people apart because they don't crumble when things go wrong. They get back up and they keep going. So, tip number three is cultivate resilience. Don't let a setback define your journey. Like, I think of Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And, before he wrote his book and became a great success, he had built a business with these sneakers where you put this little Velcro pocket on the sneaker. And then he crashed and burned, had a total bankruptcy, lost the car, lost the company, and had to live in his car. That's a failure. And yet he didn't let it stop him from getting back on the wagon and building another business. Now he's got a multi hundreds of millions of dollars business. So don't let that setback define you. Just let it be a learning, a stepping stone to keep moving. And then while we're at it, let's address that fear because that's the big thing, right? The fear of failure. So often we don't even try because we're afraid of failing. If you do that, The fear of failure holds you back from your true potential. Period. You can't get to the other side of the road if you're scared to leave the curb on the side you're at. You got to move forward, right? So, tip number 4 is to confront your fear of failure, because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act despite it. And you only need a few seconds of courage to begin the process of moving forward. So, you know, I'm talking about this and I know it's scary. I know because I've faced failure. And just recently, I launched a podcast and I didn't do the research well before I launched it. And so I launched a podcast and started doing my episodes and then found out there's like maybe 2 dozen podcasts with the same name. And for some people, that's not a big deal, but it took away my marketing mojo, right? I didn't have the will to move it up and work on it so that it could get to the status which I wanted, which is to be a new and noteworthy podcast on iTunes. So I had to start over. But that's a recent one. But I've faced my share of failures on my journey, like lots of them. And one thing that's always kept me going is having a support system. So surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, who encourage you, and who remind you of your strengths can make all the difference. So tip number 5 is to build a strong support system. Okay. And speaking of support, don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes we're so focused on being self-sufficient, we have to just embrace that fear so that we can keep moving forward, because that's how we do it. And having some guidance or mentorship, not thinking, oh, I can do it all myself, right? Build that strong support system, ask for help, and know that asking for help, seeking guidance and mentorship is all a sign of strength, not weakness. Tip number 6 is to seek guidance and support when you need it. And you will need it. So plan on it. That's what I want to say. Okay. And just remember, we're all in this together. And it's okay to fail. It's actually more than okay. It's necessary for growth. Okay. Moving on, let's talk about perseverance. When you embrace failure as a part of success, you develop a tenacious spirit. You keep pushing forward no matter how many times you stumble. So tip number 7 is to cultivate perseverance, the ability to keep going when things get tough. Okay. And I just want to touch on one more thing before I get off, because it's something that's often overlooked. Celebrate your small wins. Even in the face of failure, there are small victories, lessons learned, and progress made. Celebrating those wins can help you stay motivated and build a positive mindset. So, tip number 8 is to acknowledge and celebrate your small victories. It also helps you become more grateful. Okay. So, what I want to say overall, embracing failure as a part of success is about seeing it as an opportunity for growth and not as a personal judgment. It's about cultivating resilience, confronting your fear, seeking support, and celebrating your small wins along the way. Yes, absolutely. Because success is not about avoiding failure, it's about learning from it and using it as a stepping stone to reach your goals. So, I hope these tips have been helpful for you today. And remember, it's okay to stumble and fall, to make mistakes. It's part of the journey. Embrace your failures, learn from them, and keep moving forward. And if you have any questions or want to share your own experiences with embracing failure, please feel free to leave comments. And thank you all for joining me today. Like I said, whether you watch live or on the replay, I'm so grateful and glad that you're here. So let's continue to support each other on our journey to success. and embrace your failures and keep striving for your dream because you got this. All right. And before we go, I am going to be relaunching my podcast and I am going to invite you all to check it out. All right. And that'll be coming soon. So look for it. All right. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.